Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yamunatira Vanachari. Yamunatira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Mr. Bad Paramahansa, Bhagavad-Acharya, Ashtotar, the Sri Srimad Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta, Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa, Bhagavad-Acharya, Ashtotar, the Sri Srimad Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavindi Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Okay. Somehow I don't feel like I'm in the center of things here. Let me just... Okay. Narayana Namaskritya Narang Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiriye. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayan Rishi, the supremest human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of fortune, the goddess of learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Nashtaprayesha Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavat Yuttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering devotional service to the pure devotee, all that is inauspicious within the heart is destroyed, almost to nil, and loving devotion to the Supreme Lord, who is glorified in transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On the 6th day of March 2019 in SanDiego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are in a new chapter. This is chapter 10, entitled Dhruva Maharaj's Fight with the Yakshas. We're in Canto 4, entitled The Creation of the Fourth Order, and we're beginning with text number 1. Maitreya Uvacha Prajapatir Duhataram Shishumarasya Vaidruvaha Upaye me Brahman Nama Tatsutao Kalpavatsarao Maitreya Uvacha Prajapatir Duhitaram Shishumarasya Vaidruvaha Upaye me Brahmim Nama Tatsutao Kalpavatsarao Maitreya Uvacha Prajapatir Duhitaram Shishumarasya Vaidruvaha Upaye me Brahmim Nama Tatsutao Kalpavatsarao Maitreya Uvacha Prajapatir Duhitaram Shishumarasya Vaidruvaha Upaye me Brahmim Nama Tatsutao Kalpavatsaro Maitreya Uvacha Prajapatir Duhitaram Shishumarasya Vaidruvaha Upaye me Brahmim Nama Tatsutao Kalpavatsaro. Go ahead. Say. Maitreya Uvacha Prajapatir Duhitaram Shishumarasya Vaidruvaha Upaye me Brahmim Nama Tatsutao Kalpavatsarao Maitreya Uvacha Prajapatir Duhitaram Shishumarasya Vaidruvaha Upaye me Brahmim Nama Tatsutao Kalpavatsarao. Come on, Dhammatikmar, you can just lift the bar. Maitreya Uvacha Prajapatir Duhitaram Shishumarasya Vaidruvaha Upaye me Brahmim Nama Tatsutao Kalpavatsarao. Word by words. Maitreya Uvacha. The great sage Maitreya continued. Prajapate of the Prajapati. Duhitaram, daughter. Shishumarasya of Shishumar. Why? Certainly. Dhruvaha, Dhruva Maharaj. Upayeme, married. Brahmim, Brahmi. Nama, named. Tatsutao, her sons. Kalpa, Kalpa. Vatsarao, Vatsara. Translation. The great sage Maitreya said, "My dear Vidura, thereafter Dhruva Maharaj married the daughter of Prajapati Shishumar, whose name was Brahmi, and 2 sons named Kalpa and Vatsara were born of her." Purport. It appears that Dhruva Maharaj married after being installed on the throne of his father and after the departure of his father to the forest for self-realization. It is very important to note in this connection that since Maharaj Uttanapada was greatly affectionate toward his son, and since it is the duty of a father to get his sons and daughters married as quickly as possible, why did he not get his son married before he left home? The answer is that Maharaj Uttanapada was a Rajarshi, saintly king. Although he was busy in his political affairs and duties of government management, he was very anxious for self-realization. Therefore, as soon as his son Dhruva Maharaj was quite worthy to take charge of the government, he took this opportunity to leave home, just like his son, who without fear left home for self-realization, even at the age of 5 years. These are rare instances from which we can see that the importance of spiritual realization is above all other important work. Maharaj Uttanapada knew very well that to get his son Dhruva Maharaj married was not so important that it should take preference to his going away to the forest for self-realization. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshu unmilatam mena tasmai shri gurave namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So there's an important lesson here in this one verse and purport. And the main thing I get from this is the necessity of what we call striking while the iron is hot. There are so many verses I can think of where this word turnam comes in. Turnam means immediately, without wasting any time. What is that? I was quoting this verse recently. This is describing how the Goswamis, before they took sannyas, they were often in very responsible positions, especially Rupa, Sanatana, and Raghunath Das. And they had all facility for sense gratification. Rupa and Sanatana already had a government career. Their material side was well taken care of. But as soon as they were contacted by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as soon as they developed full-blown faith in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they were mad, really, after leaving their material position and renouncing and going to Vrindavan, basically following his instruction. So, and it happened also, you remember with Krishna's Kaviraj? He described how he left home. He was the Gaudiya Vaishnava, and they were chanting at home, but he developed great faith in Nityananda Prabhu, especially. And he had a dream where Nityananda came to him in the mood of Balaram, I believe, but he had this bluish complexion, but it's mentioned like that. And he's wielding this rod, or was it a cow stick? I think. Anyway, he had some rod with him. And he instructed him. And that you should leave everything and go to Vrindavan. You will find everything will be given to you then. You'll find everything there. And Krishna's Kaviraj attributes that mercy from Nityananda Balaram to his good behavior in chastising his brother, because his brother Miniketan Ramdas had arrived at their home and he was chanting, playing his flute, and being a little bit abadudish. I think when people would bow down, he would climb on their back. But he was one, I think, one of the Gopals, one of Nityananda's intimate 12 associates. So, but his brother, Krishna's brother, I forget if his name was even given there, had faith in Lord Chaitanya, but he had only a glimmer of faith in Nityananda. He was differentiating. And Miniketan knew that, and there was some offense, and so he became upset. He broke his flute and went away. And so Krishna's Kaviraj, he chastised his brother. It's the half-hen logic, I remember when I was working on the revision of the CC, or going through in '95, I think it was, and that was mentioned right in the Bengali, the Ardha Kukata Nyaya, I believe it's called. But it was so, it was the kind of thing that probably everyone in Bengal knows it, every Indian knows what it means, but it's complete mystery for the rest. So I put in a little footnote there, I have to confess. A little footnote. Once there was a foolish farmer who was getting eggs from his hen, and he thought he'd save money by cutting off the head, which he had to feed, and just getting the eggs. And of course, the hen died. He lost everything. So the point is that if you, in this instance, if you have faith in Lord Chaitanya but no faith in Nityananda, then that's very displeasing to Lord Chaitanya, and you don't make any progress. It just cuts your bhakti off at the root. And it's often used in reference to the Shastra, that the tendency, the temptation is to pick and choose out of the Shastra the things that correspond to your own desire and your own mentality. And the things that are too much of a challenge, you just ignore those. And this is the root cause of like Sahajiya. Sahajiya is a brand of Apasampradaya, false followers of Lord Chaitanya, who became very prominent in the decades and a couple of centuries after his disappearance, before Bhaktivinoda Thakur reinstated real Chaitanya Vaishnavism, and of course his son Bhaktisiddhanta carried that forward in Prabhupada. But Sahajiya literally means easy. That why struggle to follow all of these junctions in the Shastra that are so difficult, especially the four regs. When the essence is, dancing and chanting and Hare Krishna, being in the mood of the gopis in relation to Krishna. But the problem is that that's a great offense, and you can't really get the benefit of the Shastra if you pick and choose like that. And that's been going on in the Bhagavad Gita for years. Prabhupada, when he came, there were so many Bhagavad Gitas, but the interpretation, what to speak of even the translation sometimes, was filtered through the translator's own preferences and biases. So nothing came. The potency was lost. So what happened is that Krishna's Kaviraj, as soon as he woke up, he left home. He left for Vrindavan, never came back, and became Krishna's Kaviraj. He wrote Govinda Lilamrita. He was obviously a great scholar, a great cook also. You notice in the CC how there's all these lists of preparations, especially in that meeting when Lord Chaitanya takes sannyas and he goes to invite his house and Sita Thakurani is cooking his feast. And there are all these descriptions, And it's like that in the Govinda Lilamrita also. So he went there and he was able to associate, I think mostly with Jiva. I'm not sure if Rupa and Sanatan were still there. But anyway, he became what we know as Krishna's Kaviraj. So here we find that King Uttanapada, being inspired, by Dhruva Maharaj's example, he didn't wait to take sannyas, to leave home. This is a standard fare amongst the great kings, the Vajarshis, as I mentioned here. What's the two words? It's a combination of Raja and Rishi. Yeah, Raja and Rishi actually. The king, who is also a great scholar, a devotional scholar. And that combination is highly desired in the world, and Krishna comes down in order to install such people in authority. As he says, Padatanaya sadhanam vinashayata dushkanam dharma sangstapanartaya sambhavami yuge yuge. Artaya means for the sake of doing all these things, protecting the devotees, annihilating the demons, and reinstituting dharma. And it's always a person. The dharma is only prevalent in the world when there are those who are following dharma, who are in authority and who can guide the people and show example and enforce dharma. And so that's what he did in installing the Pandavas, with Yudhishthira at the head, and that's what he did in saving Parikshit so that he would be able to rule. Otherwise the whole line would have been destroyed. And it's a theme throughout the Bhagavatam. But personally, that's also something that we have to accept. In fact, this is a challenge. When you come in touch with Srila Prabhupada's books and the philosophy and the devotees and the temples and Krishna conscious movement in general, it's a challenge. It's a challenge to your conditioned way of life. There are certain things that are inherently attractive about Krishna consciousness. The deities, the devotees, the kirtan and the prasadam certainly. But if you try to just take those things and enjoy them, but not embrace the austerities that enable you to really taste more and more and progress in devotional service, then you can't advance. It's all auspicious. Just coming in contact with the movement, walking in one time and then never coming back again, fine, But it means that you're going to suffer. You'll suffer in this life and you'll be reborn, suffer birth and death. And the influences that are prevalent on you, you're not protected. If you really surrender and you with all your heart you practice devotional service, then you're protected, not only by Krishna but by the internal energy, by the acharyas and everyone. And so that protection is not so much physical protection, but it's the protection of your spiritual life, of your consciousness. So that willingness to kind of jump into the deep end of the pool, so to speak, is inherent. Each one of us has kind of made that decision, and because it's very much against the grain. Otherwise, it's always you're always worrying about how your material side is going on, and it requires your attention, it requires your energy, And that is often directly opposed to the spiritual side. So this is what Uttanapada is doing. As soon as his son was able to take over the kingdom, because he's not going to leave without a competent king, then he took to the forest. He went to the forest. And just try to imagine, it's practically inconceivable, and it's described in some detail. I remember in the chapters about Maharaj Prithu, he was the son of Vena. There's an interesting way in which he took birth. I won't get into the detail now. But he was a very powerful king. He was a Shaktivesh, and he did so many wonderful things in bringing the earth back into fruition so that it would support the praja and everything. But then when the time came for his renunciation, he went out to the forest, and it describes how he would just eat the fruits, and then that was too opulent, so he would just eat the leaves, and then he's eating the bark, and breathing, just like Dhruva, relying a lot on pranayama. And then at one point, Prabhupada says, we don't have to worry about that. If you engage in Harinam Sankirtan, you're automatically practicing pranayama. You get the same benefit of pranayama. But just the contrast and Rishabdev is inconceivable. Hare Krishna, Hare Bol Mark. Here they are, with extreme wealth and power and respectability, and a circle of servants and who knows what else, and just go out alone. It's very important to go alone, into the forest. I mean, could I even survive for 3 days in a forest? I don't know how to do that. It's just inconceivable. But this is what they would embrace. Now, why would it be so severe? Because it's not even recommended that we perform such severe austerities. But to be a king means to establish, just like we're hearing about Yamunacharya, right? That he was a king, and inevitably you're surrounded by all that wealth and temptation, and even if you had some spiritual training, it's often eclipsed by all the ability to enjoy, So in order to expunge that, to cleanse all that influence from your heart, especially in ages gone by, it was necessary for this extreme austerity to take place. Now we're fortunate in this age because the standard is there. In other words, it's a given that in order to go back to God, in order to get liberation, you have to be free of material desires. That's why the vairagya is a central part of the teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya wrote those famous verses, which actually aren't part of the Sushloka Shataka. Does anyone know what that is? You know what that is? Sushloka Shataka? 100 verses, beautiful verses that Sarvabhauma wrote. He's a great scholar. About Lord Chaitanya, when he had the revelation of the Shadbhuja, the six-armed form, he was converted, and then he became a full-on Vaishnava from an impersonalist, actually. And he immediately penned these verses. 100 verses. I have them. It's a published book. But two of the verses are more famous. They're not actually part of those. And one of them is very well known, and it's about this vairagya. Vairagya vidya nija bhakti yoga shikshartameka purushak purana. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Sharira Dari Kripam Buddhiyas Tamaham Papadje. So he's declaring, as I surrender now to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The same ancient person, Krishna, has now come in the name of Chaitanya and the form of Chaitanya, the golden avatar, to teach what? Vairagya and Vidya and Nija Bhakti Yoga. His own devotional service means service to himself. The same person, Krishna, is teaching service to himself in the form of the greatest servant, Lord Chaitanya, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And it's characterized by detachment and knowledge, which undergirds the bhakti. Now we know that the bhakti is independent. Bhakti is not dependent on your being detached or your being knowledgeable. But the fact of the matter is that if you practice bhakti a little bit, then the vairagya and the vidya will come automatically. But then you have to be committed to maintaining it. Just like if you walk into the temple here, right, the first time, Sunday feast, you got a book or you got a notice or you got online. So if you get wrapped up in that kirtan, Hare Krishna, and you're actually chanting and you're a little absorbed, during that time, you will be detached from perhaps everything else. You'll be absorbed for that time in chanting Hare Krishna. And there's no material element to it. You know, you're in the association of devotees, you're hearing the pure name, more or less. So, but and of course, because of the conditioning, the fan is still running. As soon as the kirtan stops and you go home, or you leave the temple or whatever, or you check your cell phone, you're not meditating on Krishna anymore. You're not absorbed, and the material desires and interests and imperatives come flooding back in. Oh yeah, I got to go. It's 8:30. You know, it was nice. You know, but now I got so many other things to do. So, everybody who begins devotional service has to face that, because we have a whole history in this life and previous lives of activity that's not Krishna conscious. So how do you get the determination? And this is what this chapter is all about. The whole pastime of Dhruva is about great determination. Dhruva means determination. To actually become steady in devotional service on the platform of vairagya and vidya. Well, that comes from, you know, the part about surrendering to the guru and hearing and studying and taking and you know, staying in the mode of goodness, where your mind is more under control, and you know, with cleanliness and regulation, and basically choosing good association, and maintaining it so that you can be uplifted and purified. So it is a struggle, especially with our unqualified Kali Yuga lives and minds and bodies. You know, it's difficult, but there's no way around it. This is like the qualification, the prerequisite you need in order to go back to Godhead. You have to expunge all these material desires. Now, we know that, you know, Krishna helps. In other words, if you just chant Hare Krishna, if you can just surrender to that on a regular basis and get absorbed and pray through the chanting, that's all you need to do, you know, if you can chant purely. But how to become to the point of chanting purely, that's all of this sadhana bhakti and vaidhi bhakti that we need to embrace. But the idea of taking the opportunity, this is the key element, is that because there's so many people who come, you know, and they're very interested in Krishna consciousness. While they're here, they may sit down and chant 16 rounds, you know, and it's happening all over the world. There's all kinds of guests who come, you know, but the one who's really ready to embrace Krishna consciousness as life and soul, that's very rare. I mean, it's super rare in this age, but it's the invitation. You know, Krishna's saying, you know, just give it all up. Throughout the Bhagavad Gita, we keep reading these things. You know, he's talking about the four varnas. He's talking about anad bhavanti bhutani. Here's how you live. You need to perform yajna in order to get rain, to get food, in order to live. But then a few verses later, it's the absolute. You know, mai savani karmani sanyas yajat machetasa nirashir nimamo bhutva yudhyasa vikatadvara. And Prabhupada says right in the purport at the beginning, this verse shows the essence of the whole Bhagavad Gita, or the purpose of the whole Bhagavad Gita. You think about it. My sarvani karmani sanya atmachet. All your activities given over to me. He mentioned it. My sarvani sanyas yajat machetasa. Renouncing the fruits of the activities and always being, on the soul platform, the spiritual platform. Nirashir. No other desires, you know, all other desires gone. And nirmamo, no sense of proprietorship over anything in this world. Akinchana. Yudhyasva, and do your duties, you know, and whatever it may be. For Arjuna was fighting, so it's yudhyasva, it's fighting, you know. So just think about that. Do your duty, you know. But you can't have any sense of ownership of the fruits. They also have to come to me, you know, I mean, it's like, okay, I'll try to do that later. You know, it's a big challenge. But what's the benefit? In other words, what is the bottom line after all that? which he doesn't mention in this verse, is that your consciousness is such that you're actually tapping in to the actual root or the wellspring of real happiness in this world. Because Krishna's not a dead stone. If you're actually serving him in this way, he's reciprocating from within, deep within your heart, so that you're feeling happy and peaceful, and there's a joy there that you can't have by bhogaishwarya prasaktanam. So the benefits are enormous, and that's why we have to hear about them. Just like this, I have this ashtaka that was attributed to Lord Chaitanya, or at least that he sung while he was traveling in South India, and some pilgrim wrote it down, and it became current. I don't know if you ever heard of this one, the Yugala Parihara Stotram. But the last line, first it glorifies. It's like an expanded Hare Krishna mantra. He soundai nadana rupa gadiman madhurya lila nata. He ascharya vishesha vesha dadahe bhangshi vibhusha vibho. He vrindata vibhu vilasa nila satkeli kalakaumudi. He radhe chadane videhi shadanam he Krishna Trishnam hara. Last line is like that. It's kind of advanced, but it's just basically a description of Radha and Krishna. Hey Soundai Nadana Rupa Gadimano, you of the glorious form, which is the sum total of all beauty. Soundai and Rupa Gadiman, Madhurya Leela Nata, who are always beautiful dancing and sweetness in your pastime. Hey Madhurya Leela, hey Ascharya Vishesha Veshadade. Oh, all the details of your dress and beauty, which are so amazing and ever fresh. Hey Ascharya Vishesha Veshadade. Vangshi Vibhusha Vibho, O Lord, who are decorated and always holding that beautiful flute. So that's all the Krishna. Then he has to Radharani. Vangshi, He Soundai Nadanu Bhagadiman Madhurya, He Ascharya Vishesha Veda, He Vangshi Vibhusha Vibho, He Vrindatavi Bhuvilasani, O you who are always in Vrindavan and enjoying your pastime. Vrindavan, He Vrindata Vibhu Vilasan, the Sat Keli Kalakamudi. He who is just like a moon whose moonshine are all the wonderful loving arts that you display in Vrindavan. And then the last line, He Radhe Chadane Videhi Shadanam, O Radharani, give me shelter at your lotus feet. O Krishna, Krishnam Hara, please take away all my desires for other things. We have to pray like that. So what can replace that? You can't become desireless. Prabhupada makes this point again and again. The effort of the impersonalists or the Buddhists or whoever, the Voidists, to try to become desireless is impossible. In other words, it's doomed to failure. Because we're living beings, and as spirit souls, we have desires because we're part and parcel of Krishna, who's full of all kinds of loving desires, ultimately. So the method or the actual success formula is to purify the desires, not to try to repress them. And that requires careful guidance, good association, and discipline, and everything that we have in sadhana bhakti. But the key element is to kind of jump in, because this is all kind of beyond the range of our sense perception. It's all transcendental. We have to have the faith in the authorities, the authority of Krishna, the authority of his representatives, to take it up, because it's a risk. As Arjuna is saying, oh, I'll go to the forest, there's no way I control my mind, it's more powerful than the wind, so I'll take up this process, but then I'll never be able to succeed, but I've already left my material side, so I'll be like a riven cloud, I'll be a failure. So, of course, Krishna encouraged him and said, no, there's no loss, no diminution. You'll get reborn in a wealthy family or a family of yogis, like that. But you have to have faith in that statement. Otherwise, it seems that like people like the materialists, they look at us and say, "Oh boy, these guys are nuts." They don't have anything we have that we're striving for. But our strength is, if we can be strong in devotional service, then we can actually be peaceful and happy, which they're not. They can never be. And that's what's attractive. That you can actually be Krishna conscious and happy. So we're going to read now these what happens in the kingdom, in Dhruva Maharaj's reign, and one of the things that happens that his brother, and also it's going to be describing the next few verses, his stepmother also dies. Doesn't describe exactly how. I think elsewhere she died in the forest fire or something. But his brother was killed by the yakshas, and so Dhruva, he goes out there and he starts killing thousands and thousands of yakshas, and I think it was Brahma comes down, or Kuvera, I think, comes down to appeal, to stop, which he does. Okay, any questions on these points? The main point is striking while the iron is hot. In other words, taking advantage and not hesitating, because you can always get covered again by the modes of nature, and you put it off, and you end up putting it off for a whole lifetime. Yes, Prabhu. Use the mic.
Traditional ashram culture, at the end of life, renunciation is required, like Prabhupada always says a million times over and over again. At 50, then you start giving it up. But there's also statements in Shastra that Sudras often remain married until death.
Yeah, Sudras don't take sannyas.
Is it also Vaishyas?
Because
Brahmins take sannyas, Kshatriyas take vanaprast. But what about Vaishyas?
Do we have any Vaishyas? I mean, we...
Yeah.
I forget. It's probably there in the 7th canto with a lot of description of Varnashram.
Okay. But so then, what does that practically look like now? Because if we have a society of Brahmins or devotees initiated as Brahmins, cultivating Brahminical principles, what does that practically look like at 50, them renouncing?
Well, I'll tell you what it practically looks like, and that is that it's very rare. It's very rare for anyone to follow that program. And the main reason that I understand is because you have to have a supporting civilization that's supporting it. Just like families. This nuclear family is completely bogus. Prabhupada describes in some lecture that I've heard. Family means you have your relatives with you. You take in your grandma and your grandfather, and you got the uncles, and it's an extended family. And so this whole idea that, okay, ideally you go through the Gurukul, you come out, and by 25 you get married, or even earlier. All right, you have your young wife, and you have your child, okay, son. You got to have a son. So before long. So you have your son, and then, 25 years, which isn't that long when you think about it. You're doing the family thing, and you're supporting the children, you're bringing them up, getting your daughters married, and this and that. And then at 50, you start vanaprastha. You leave home. Okay. Just the airfare alone seems prohibited, but anyway, you go on pilgrimage, different places, you go for some time. And then when you're ready for full renunciation, you send the wife back to the elder son, who is perfectly willing to take her in and support her, And then you go and you take sannyas, and you're traveling before austerities. But it's so rare these days. First of all, the extended family isn't there. You have this nuclear family. If you have a son in today's age, it's highly unlikely that the son, even if he's age 25, is going to be ready to take in his 60-year-old mother and live with him. You probably can't afford it, And then there's always Social Security, In other words, and the geography is different. That's a big thing. Is that everyone scatters. You go to school, you got to apply to a school, they go all across the country. You're from Ohio, and the daughter goes to Stanford. We had our dentist, extended dentist family. Vinod and his wife and everything. They moved to the Detroit area because the daughter was attending college or medical school. They just came back before she graduated like the youngest doctor in the whole country. You know about it. They came here to celebrate. But they moved. They could afford to just uproot or probably rented their house out. Now I think they're back living in SanDiego. Who can do that? So what happens is the children scatter, and then they get other agendas, and so then what are you going to do? Just say goodbye to the wife and she has nobody to live with, like that. In other words, so it's extremely rare. First of all, for the impetus for Vanaprastha and traveling, and all that to go on. So it's not happening even in ISKCON. The sannyasis are coming. I mean, you've got over 100 now in ISKCON. I think well over 100. Most of them Indian, but they're taking sannyas for preaching alone, and many of them are coming from brahmachari platform, which is a lot easier. But it's the varnashram as Prabhupada outlined it is not really manifesting. He always wanted Gita Nagari or some other farm to show the ideal life. But one of the problems is, because I remember Gita Nagari, I used to live in the New York area. We used to visit there every month with the BTG. Is that the exigencies of the economic was that to support this ever-growing herd of cows, which is also another thing, and some of whom can't milk anymore, they just have to be taken care of. They become an economic burden. They had traveling parties, painting parties. The paintings, I don't know if the Korean paintings. Some of them all women, to go and support that was going on, I don't know, maybe 10 years in the 80s, to support the farm, the idyllic farm. But it couldn't sustain in and of its own. Now it's doing quite well, but I think one of the ways it's doing it is it's a yoga retreat. They come up from New York and it's this idyllic place and they make money that way. So the whole economics of it, and also the influence from outside. One of the reasons they closed down the school in Alachua, Lakshmimoni had a school with Akuti. I think you were around in those days. And, it was a well-known school for girls, and there was a boys' school, more or less a gurukul, is the advent of the cell phones. Once you have a cell phone, and the parents all, because some kids have a cell phone and some don't, and they go nuts, so the parents insisted they be out of the cell phone. But then, they were calling some of the boys at night, and this and that. It was impossible to control it. And so you had to shut it down. So it's very difficult to reconstruct the ideal as shown in the books or even that Prabhupada mentioned. And yet, because of the strength of Krishna consciousness, this movement is going on. And it's going on largely because of the foundation of the renunciation of the leaders. If the leaders are pure, or a vast majority of them, some are going to flake off, then things can go on. They flow because Krishna consciousness is so powerful. But I wouldn't, and there's a very, strong household community also, many who are very, doing wonderful service, they're renounced, But the ideal of that we see in Varnashram is very hard to reconstruct. That's been my observation. There you have it. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.